Welcome to the Success Solutions podcast, where we talk about fitness, nutrition, and business. In this episode, we'll be diving deep into the world of nutrition and explore how it impacts our overall health and well-being. I'll be your host, Eric Salinas, with guest Leah Blake from Leah Food and Fitness. So without further ado, here's the episode.
Hi, how's it going today? Thanks for taking the call. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So, so give us a little background about you and what got you into nutrition and what got you into the whole, starting your business and everything.
Sure. So I am a registered associate nutritionist in the UK. I have a master's degree in human nutrition. My undergraduate was actually completely unrelated. It was in anthropology, which a lot of people don't even know what that is, but it's essentially the study of humans and culture. It's a really broad topic. And I loved it, but there was no clear sort of career progression from that degree, and I didn't really know where I was going with it. So I was looking for alternative paths and routes. I'd always been interested in food and nutrition. I grew up in a time where diet culture was so pervasive, and the sort of heroin chic or emaciation essentially was considered attractive and the ideal. And I didn't have the best relationship with food myself growing up, but I was also really fascinated by it and the potential in nutrition and fitness to improve, your well-being in general. So I found a master's degree in nutrition. It was really last minute. The deadline for the applications was the next day. And so it was a pretty spontaneous decision. Didn't really know where it was going to take me, but I knew that I loved to study. I knew I was interested in the topic, and I wasn't really ready to go into the world of work full time at that point. So I jumped at the opportunity to keep studying. I sort of built things from there.
Awesome. And when did you start your business? What made you decide to start your business instead of going into working with somebody?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've kind of taken a bit of a windy road. So I graduated in 2020. Lockdown happened. I was doing whatever I could during the time to make money. I was working on building sites for a while, which was a whole for work in the field. And then I worked as a weight management practitioner and a healthy lifestyle practitioner for a little while, delivering nutrition workshops, fitness classes, both online via Zoom. And then when restrictions lifted, I started doing that more in person. At the time, I was also working as a personal trainer and a nutritionist in my local gym, which I absolutely loved. We had the most fantastic team. The gym was new when I started. I was their first employee, and it was a fantastic job. And I was lucky enough to be quite successful quite quickly. Picked up quite a lot of in-person clients there. Because I did my personal training before my master's as well. So I had that qualification sort of in my pocket anyway. And then I picked up and moved into my camper van with my partner and moved to the other side of the country. So with that client base that I had built, I essentially asked them, do you want to continue working with me? If you do, we're going to have to try online, essentially, which I'd never done before. Didn't really know what I was doing with it, but thankfully a lot of my clients joined me and were willing to kind of sit with me while I figured it out and figured out my systems and ways of working. That was nearly a year ago now, and thankfully most of them are still with me. I've picked up some more clients in that time as well. And I also work part-time for the NHS as a diabetes health coach, and then a couple of days in my local leisure centre as well. So I've got big variety, and my sort of personal business is it's a big part of what I do, and I love everyone I work with. It's really fantastic.
That's awesome. I like how you were kind of forced into figuring out the whole online thing. Not many people, so most people get to choose, whether they want to stay in person or do the online thing, but you were kind of forced into it. That's very interesting. How was that experience for you?
Strange. I definitely recommend when people, if you're a personal trainer or, it's mostly with personal training, really. I think there is so much to be said for getting experience on the gym floor. There's so much that you learn through in-person working with people. Nutrition is a bit different because nutrition consultations really can be completed over video fine. So I was kind of used to that aspect because I'd done that a little bit already. But moving everything else online was I'm really not great with tech and figuring out how, like, online systems and processes, but I invested in a like app platform essentially, which made things a lot easier. Figured it out as I went along. As I say, I was lucky to have clients that already knew me and were willing to wait for me to figure it out properly, essentially. And then, yeah, since I started, I've just been streamlining it, figuring out my processes. It's got a lot easier, and I think my service is a lot better now than when I first started. Yeah, it was definitely a journey, to say the least.
That's awesome. What app platform, I'm curious, helped you out, online? What made it easy for you?
Yeah, so I use Trainerize. It's really popular. I really like it because, I coach myself on there. Like, I have my personal account where I log on my workouts and stuff so that I can see it from my client's perspective. And then you can, program workouts. You can keep an eye on everybody's progress. You can also do like habit coaching. So, the service I provide is relatively holistic. It's not just focused on, just fitness or just nutrition. So it allows me to work with people in their lifestyle habits as well. It has a nice little habit tracker. And I can deliver certain nutrition aspects on there as well. So yeah, it's a great platform.
Very cool. Yeah, that's what I also recommend to the coaches that I work with. It's definitely a great platform, very easy for them to use and to just, add their clients on there and keep track of everything. It's in a sense, a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more helpful than working with somebody just in person, because in person it's just kind of when you see them, and online you kind of have access to what they're doing every day. So it's a little bit of a change, but I think that it can be helpful if people are willing to kind of allow themselves the freedom to kind of just do it online instead of having to go and see a person all the time, or vice versa with a trainer. If they're willing to allow their clients to make a little bit of mistakes, working out and kind of figure it out on their own. That's one thing that I know a lot of personal trainers are kind of worried about, is the fact that they're like, how are they going to learn how to do the exercises on their own? Well, for me, it's like, how did they learn how to tie their shoes? So it's like, got to kind of give a little bit of trust to your clients. They're a lot smarter than they appear to be. Just because they don't know something doesn't mean that they've never figured something out in their life. They did figure out that they wanted to, get healthy and get fit again. So those are like little things that I think don't really matter as much, but I think personal trainers put a little bit more emphasis on, how are they going to be able to do that? It's like, they can figure it out. Plus the app Trainerize gives you a lot of, help with that, because it gives you the workout videos that you can add so people can kind of see what to do, or you can add your own videos. So it's super helpful for sure.
Exactly. That exercise library is already there, ready for you, with demonstrations. And then if you have something that you want to add, you can do, or you can refilm exercises yourself. And as you say, it can work with hybrid as well. So you could coach people in line and then also have them in person, and also have them online. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. But you can trust people to figure things out. And I encourage people to send me videos and of their form and things as well, if they're worried they're not doing something right, and sort of coach from a distance. But it's tough, but you do have to trust people to figure things out, and they'll learn.
Exactly. At the end of the day, you can't force them to do things, so they're gonna have to do it on their own anyway. So it's a good way for them to kind of build that trust within themselves and those habits, and start trusting that they can do it on their own and just kind of grow from there. So that's awesome. That's what I appreciate about online coaching. You know what I mean? Is that freedom, but you still give them that accountability, to say, be part of your community and say, hey, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? I noticed that you've been slacking, So
yeah, exactly.
Good. So let's get into a little bit of the nutritional topic that we're going to talk about. So can you explain, like, what is nutrition exactly? And, what is that? What is your experience with nutrition? What does that mean to you? How do you help your clients with nutrition, things of that nature? Or what is your goal for your clients with nutrition?
Well, it's really individual, really. Everybody has their own sort of areas that they feel they want to make progress in. They have their own goals. Nutrition in general just refers to food or nourishment, essentially, and good nutrition would be obtaining an adequate diet for health or individual goals depending on their circumstances. I work a lot with clients on just general health improvement, some fat loss, although I work in fat loss, but also a lot of work with like mindset around food and trying to build that healthier mindset and break the diet cycle, essentially. I think that kind of sums it up.
So just to kind of go back a little bit, you mentioned the word holistic. Can you explain what that means and how that is how you help people with that?
Yeah, by holistic, I think holistic sometimes sounds a bit like woo, but essentially what I mean when I use the term is that you can't just look at one aspect of health in singularity. Health is a big picture of a multitude of components, so nutrition falls into that, but if you aren't sleeping well, your nutrition is going to suffer. If you aren't getting active and you have a fat loss target, then it's going to be hard to reach that goal if you are only looking at diet per se, or if you want to improve your health, then it all sort of comes into one. Stress relief, your happiness in life, your level of fulfillment in life is really important in terms of how you handle and work towards your goals as well. It's really going to impact so many areas of your health, both physical and mental, that it all needs to be considered together. That being said, obviously my specialism is in the nutrition and fitness side of things, but I always check in with clients on aspects like their sleep, their stress levels, their general activity levels, just to point out if there are areas that could support the work they're doing with me, and then potentially they could find help with those aspects elsewhere.
Very cool. Very cool. So how about you start telling us a little bit of like the nutrition basics and stuff like that people maybe should be aware of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the very sort of basics of nutrition principles is adequate balance of nutrients. So you have your macronutrients, which is your carbohydrates, so like your starchy foods like bread, potatoes, rice, pasta, whole grains like quinoa and things. And then you've got your protein sources, chicken, fish, other red meats, beans, eggs, tofu. And then you've got your fat sources as well. And you've got your saturated fats, which are the less heart healthy fats. So that's normally found in animal products. And then you have your unsaturated fats, which are the more heart healthy fats found in nuts, avocado, and also in oily fish. So that's sort of all of those nutrients in balance forms the basis of nutrition, and then also just ensuring you're getting adequate micronutrients as well. So vitamins and minerals, fiber in particular is pretty important as well.
Gotcha. So what would you say, is there like one of the macronutrients more important than the others? And does it depend on, anything like exercise or anything like that? And how do you go about understanding what type of, or how much you should be breaking down your foods within the macronutrients?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not one is not more important than the other. They all serve functions. So carbohydrates are really important for energy. If you don't eat enough carbs, you're going to feel pretty rubbish. You're going to feel very fatigued. You might even get like brain fog. It's like keto brain, some people call it, because if you're on a keto diet, you're eating very low carbs. So carbohydrates are important there. They also provide a lot of B vitamins as well, in particular the whole grains do. Protein is really important for cell repair and growth, and that includes muscle synthesis and maintenance. So if you are not weight training, then 1.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight is adequate. Some would argue even less. But if you are weight training, doing any kind of activity which uses your muscles regularly, or if you have any strength goals, any physique goals in terms of growing your muscles, then a little bit more protein would be ideal, up to sort of 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight, really. And it is important. Some people go a bit overboard with protein. I think you don't need to be downing like 12 eggs in the morning and 4 protein shakes throughout the day. That would not feel good. But there is something to be said for getting a solid portion of protein at every meal. And then potentially snacks as well if you have those sort of physique goals. And then your fats are really important for heart health, hormonal regulation. There are fat soluble vitamins as well. So like vitamins A, D, and E, for example, they need fat in order to be utilized in the body. So they're really important there. And we need a level of body fat as well. We don't want to be at 0% body fat. We do need some fat to protect our organs and provide an energy store in sometimes, and also as a layer of insulation, essentially. So yeah, there's not one that is more important than the other. Finding balance is the key, and you can kind of roughly split it up into percentages, but the specific sort of percentage of your energy that comes from each macronutrient will really vary depending on who you are and what your goals are. Some people do well on less carbs, and higher fat. Some people do well the opposite. And again, as I mentioned, your protein target will vary depending on your goals as well. And in terms of energy in general. So like the number of calories we eat as well is an important principle to bear in mind. If you eat more than you burn, you're going to store excess energy as fat and gain weight, which then can lead to health complications. And then at the other end of the scale, if you consume less energy than you use, you will lose weight, which can then lead to its own complications if you become underweight and undernourished. So making sure you get that energy balance right within your goals, and then think about your macronutrients as well, your balance a little bit. You don't need to count macros. Not everyone needs to anyway. Some people choose to, but yeah, just having an awareness of building a balanced diet where you have some of all of it essentially is very important.
Do you find that that's probably the most difficult or challenging thing to train your clients to change their habits on?
Sometimes, yes. I think what I've experienced anyway, and I see is really common, is people often latch on to certain diets that they think is going to produce amazing results. So keto, paleo, Atkins, they're all similar, or low carb, all of these sort of ideas really, yeah, sure, they work, but the basic premise of all of them is that you just end up eating less calories. Like that's the main way they work for weight loss. And sometimes people think, oh, I need to follow this particular diet, but it's actually really quite restrictive, when in reality, if they just focused on the quality of their diet, ensured that they're getting a good carb source, a good protein source, and some healthy fats at every meal, and that they're getting adequate portions of them as well, so they're not overeating one and not undereating another, then that is the best place to start. You don't need to go down these crazy diet routes, which a lot of them aren't even evidence-based anyway. So yeah, the basics are key, and often overlooked.
Yeah, definitely. So would you say that there's like a difference in how a woman or a man should approach their diets? Is there any difference within the type of nutrients they should be consuming, if they're exercising or not exercising, if they're older or younger?
Somewhat, yes. I don't think there's going to be massive differences. For hormonal regulation, particularly for women, ensuring that we're getting adequate fats, unsaturated fats, and also sort of as women age, a consideration of again, sort of hormones, and but there's a potential for things like soy-based foods to have a really good benefit. For menopausal women, for example, but I don't think it varies that much. The goal would be more important there. So if a man wants to gain muscle and a woman wants to gain muscle, it's going to be a similar approach for both of them, essentially.
Okay. So would you say that that there's an important nutrient that somebody should focus on, or is it just based depending on what their goals are?
Yeah, I don't think there's really one which is most important. Consider the balance of all nutrients. As I mentioned, I think less important are the highly processed foods, like foods high in sugar, saturated fat, like cakes, chocolate, sweets, takeaways, convenience foods. So in terms of physical health, they're going to be less important, but I like to call those like soul foods, essentially. So they do serve a purpose for your mental health and your happiness. So it would be a miserable existence without them for a lot of us. So in terms of physical health, sure, make sure you're following the basic principles, but in terms of mental health as well, do consider what makes you happy. That is important too.
So for soul foods, what do you say that you're talking about? Like, let's say a cheat meal, is that what you're referring to?
Essentially, but I wouldn't use the term cheat because I'm very much focused on sort of not demonizing food. Food isn't good or bad. Like I say, it all serves different purposes. So when you call it a cheat meal, sure, it works for some people, right? It does work for some people that they stay really on track, if you want to say that, and then they indulge in a big meal once a week or whatever. If that works for you, that's absolutely fine. But I think it perpetuates the idea that you are restricting, and that you are limiting yourself. And then sometimes those binges can get out of control. Whereas in reality, if we can find a balance every day, then I would suggest that may be a healthier mindset to have for most people. But as I say, it really depends.
Yeah, I agree. It's very important, the words we use with ourselves. That's why I was like cheat meal, you know what I mean? Because like you said, there's not really a cheat meal unless you overdo it, then I guess you could call it cheating at that point. But no food is bad as long as you stay within, not overeating essentially. So I'm glad that you said that. That was a really great point. So I'm just curious about your opinion. You know, fasting has been starting to come up now and starting to be seen more, especially on the internet. More people are talking about it. What is your what do you think about fasting and like intermittent fasting? How do you feel about that? Do you know about studies and stuff like that? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's not like the miracle I think that it's sometimes presented as. In most cases, the success that is seen in fasting diets tends to be just from calorie restriction, and we can't sort of differentiate between whether it's actually the fasting or if it's just the fact that you ate less in general that produced the weight, if you're looking at weight loss specifically. It's not something that I'm particularly clued up on, in all honesty. For some people it works. So sometimes if somebody overeats a lot in the evening, for example, there's obviously a lot of work to do there around discovering the reasoning behind overeating in the evening and what they're, searching for essentially. But for some people, having like a cut-off point in the day can be helpful. But I don't think it is, it doesn't seem to have that much. There's not much evidence for any benefit beyond just essentially calorie restriction. And we all fast every night. We go a solid 8 hours without eating, which the idea of sort of giving your digestive system a rest, it rests, it does that already. So yeah, I'm not, as I say, it works for some people and it's an approach that I would explore with some people, but for most people, it's not necessary.
Yeah, that's why they call it breakfast, right? Break fast in the morning. So yeah,
exactly.
That makes total sense. It's good to know though, because a lot more people are kind of telling people to do intermittent fasting and things of that nature, and people think that it's going to be like the savior to them. And what it really comes down to at the end, like you're saying, is just about restricting the calories or restricting the amount of times that you eat. So that's what it all comes down to at the end of the day, is eating less calories.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to try and foster more of an abundance mindset in clients. So rather than thinking of what you can restrict and cut down on, what can you add to improve the quality of your diet? So fruit and vegetables, for example, we could probably all do with eating more plants. The majority of the population could. And if you focus on increasing the number of fruit and vegetables you eat, quite often as a byproduct, you end up eating less of other things that are less conducive to health. So, focusing on improving the quality of your diet rather than cutting things out often really helps. And also a lot of people go through sort of restrictive processes and they're literally not eating enough to fill themselves up to feel satisfied. Whereas if you say, right, can you add another serving of veg to that meal? That's going to increase the volume of the meal. It's going to increase the satiety level of the meal. It's going to increase the satisfaction factor, and all of that sort of focusing on another nutritionist calls it like nutrition by addition, which I really like, rather than restriction. I think that can be a really nice route, especially with people that have a history of restrictive or disordered eating. Then just focusing on nourishing yourself and having enough respect for yourself and your body to really fuel it with the good stuff often is a more productive way to go about improving health than trying to cut things out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what would you recommend people should be eating on a daily basis? Is there types of foods, or what can they do to improve their nutrition if, that's something that is one of their goals?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So the first thing to know is that if anyone says one certain food or food-based product is a miracle cure for something, it's most likely rubbish, and they're probably making money from that food or product. So question everything when it comes to that. That being said, there are some sort of food groups and dietary patterns which are associated with improved health and positive health consequences. So particularly a Mediterranean style diet pattern we know is associated with longevity and good health, as I say. So that's characterized by lots of whole plant foods. So fruits and vegetables, pulses such as lentils and beans, whole grain carbs such as quinoa, oats, brown pasta, rice and bread. There is a world of grains out there that people don't even know exist. Things like frike and millet and farro. There are all of these weird and wonderful grains that you can find in your supermarket, but people often skip past. These are really good sources of carbohydrate, very high in fiber. So yeah, more of those as a whole, I think, would be beneficial. And then also like good quality protein sources. So lean meat, particularly like white meat, like chicken and turkey over red meat always, and fish, as well as nuts, seeds, plant oils as well for those healthy fats. So that's kind of the considered to be the gold star essentially of dietary patterns. Obviously, it's dependent on people's own experiences and health conditions. If you have IBS, for example, you might not want to be chucking a load of lentils in your diet because that might be quite uncomfortable for you. So it is always specific. But in general, those principles are positive, and increasing plant foods is probably the biggest thing I would say for a lot of people. Fiber is so important in our diets, and we do not hit the recommended fiber recommendation. So at least in the UK, I know that 30 grams of fiber a day is the recommendation. And on average, I think we're hitting about 18 grams, or only about 10% of the population are hitting that target. But fiber is so important for digestive health, for reducing risk against like colorectal cancers. It improves our gut health as well, like our gut microbiome, which is linked to our immunity and our mental health potentially as well. So, more of those high fiber whole plant foods are going to be positive.
Definitely. Yeah. That's great information for sure for people. So would you say that what can someone do if they decided, or let me ask you this, what are the type of things that nutrition can do for someone, just in a health matter? Like what are the like diseases or things of that nature that can be helped just specifically with nutrition, and just a little change of diet or eating habits? What are the type of diseases that, some people might want to seek out help for that they may not even know of, and maybe work with somebody that can kind of cater to them and help them, change their lifestyle so then that way they can, not have the issues that they're currently dealing with.
Mm-hmm. With most ailments and diseases, an improvement in nutrition will probably improve symptoms. So any sort of heart conditions, we can certainly include more heart protective foods in our diet to protect against heart disease and cardiovascular disease. So reducing sort of saturated fat intake, reducing salt intake, and increasing unsaturated fat intake will really help with risks of heart and cardiovascular diseases. Diabetes is normal, or type 2 diabetes at least, is normally associated with excess weight and excess sort of sugar or carbohydrate intake. So controlling your energy intake, controlling your carbohydrate intake and your sugar intake can have such an incredible impact on diabetes management. So that's what I work in the NHS as a diabetes health coach, and it is really astounding how a few simple changes, like even swapping from sugar and tea to sweeteners, can bring their blood sugar levels down and stabilize them really effectively. And by doing that, they just feel so much better, because symptoms of type 2 diabetes often includes fatigue, lethargy, irritability, just feeling a bit rubbish basically. So when you control your blood sugar and stabilize it and bring the sort of your average blood sugar down, then those symptoms are often eased, and the improvement can be really, really astounding. Generally, if you're feeling a bit low energy, if you're feeling even just a bit antsy, and mentally not there, often improving your diet can have a benefit as well. So again, just making sure that the quality of your diet is good. So more of those whole plant foods, less of the processed stuff, is going to help you feel good. And it's going to improve your self-efficacy as well, because if you make these changes to your lifestyle, you're going to feel good about yourself because you're doing something for yourself, and that is already going to improve your health as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Is when you start setting goals for yourself and following through with those goals, it's definitely a game changer, at least for yourself to understand that, hey, I can stick with stuff and I can do what I say I'm going to do, essentially. Exactly. Very helpful for mental health for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It helps to foster that growth mindset. People quit when things get tough a lot of the time, and people perceive failure as a reflection on their self-worth. But in reality, failure is just an opportunity to learn. When something doesn't go your way, think of it, okay, that strategy, whatever I was doing clearly didn't work. How can I do better at this? It's not a reflection on you. It's not a reflection on your self-worth. And when you start working on your health, quite often, as long as you go about it the right way, sometimes with a bit of support from someone to help with the mindset side of things, then that kind of develops with it as well. And as you succeed, you feel like you can accomplish things. So that just helps in all other areas of your life.
I definitely agree with that, especially seeking support. Sometimes we're a little scared to do that, but I've noticed that many of the successful people that I do talk to, they all have mentors, coaches, people that they use even at the level that they're at a high level. Even those people still use mentors or speak to their peers just to get, different opinions or different advice on things. So that's one thing that I noticed that a lot of successful people do. And I think that that's great that you mentioned that. It's a very good point to bring up. Few things that I did want to ask you about too. So I wanted to ask you about steak and water. So we'll start with steak first, because you mentioned a little bit about that. You said, so how much steak or, red meat should somebody be consuming throughout the week? Does it matter if they're doing exercise or not? Can you explain a little bit about that? And then also I wanted to discuss a little bit about water. How much should people be drinking daily, and things of that nature? Does it matter should they be drinking more if they're exercising, or, does it matter? Stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. So red meat, steak, is a solid source of protein. It can really help you reach your protein targets. It's also high in iron and some other nutrients. However, it's also really high in saturated fat. So it is, high red and processed meat intake is associated with negative health outcomes. It can increase your risk of cardiovascular disease. In particular, certain processed meats are carcinogenic as well, so it can increase your risk of cancer. So when it comes to red and processed meats, just try and keep your portion sizes to like the palm of your hand, essentially, would be one portion of red meat. And I don't believe there's any sort of specific recommendations, but I wouldn't have more than one of those a day, and ideally less than that. Personally, I would say 2 or 3 times a week for red meat would be a target to achieve, but I'm not sure if there's any sort of specific guidelines with regard to that. But definitely sort of the white meats like chicken and turkey are a better option. White fish is a really underrated source of protein as well. Like cod is a really, really high in protein. And also you've got your oily fish as well, like salmon and sardines. They're also high in protein and other omega-3 as well, which is really important fatty acid for heart and brain health.
So,
and then...
Oh, sorry, real quick, just to step back. So I noticed that you said the palm of your hand, right? So that is a good point for somebody to understand if it's going to be individualistic, right? So they look at their own palm of their hand, not, let's say, if I'm talking with my girlfriend and I'm like, you need to eat this amount, what I'm eating, right? So it's individualistic, right? Just to confirm, so people are more understanding about that. Right. Yeah,
but your hand is individual to you, and normally it's correlated to your general body size, right? So your hand is a great measure of portions. So for most people, sort of a palm of red meat would be a good portion size. For carbohydrates, it's about the size of your fist. So you can compare that to a potato. Kind of a little bit harder to measure like rice compared to your fist, but you can kind of use it as a guide. Fish and like white meat, you can use the whole flat of your hand. So from the bottom of your palm to your fingertips for white fish and white meat. Oily fish is slightly smaller than that. Nuts is the very center of your palm, so not too much. So yeah, you can use your hand as a guide. And for most people, obviously, if you know that you have abnormally large hands in correlation to your body size, then bear that in mind. But for most people, it's a really nice individual measure to start from. At least your portions will vary depending on your activity levels, your energy balance, and your goals. But it's a good starting place.
Very interesting. Yeah. One thing, just on a side note, that I've been hearing a lot about is people are starting to kind of talk more about eating with their hands again. I don't know if you've been hearing stuff about that. How do you feel about that? Because people say it's more of a mindful thing to do, is to actually eat with your hands. You feel the food, you feel how hot it is. You get the portion size that you need, or you can get, depending on your skills with your hands, and you're able to put in your mouth, feel everything. People also mentioned that there's a little bit of germs in your hands already. So, consuming that is a little bit helpful for avoiding diseases, or helping your body kind of, get those little bits of germs in there so that they can, fight off certain diseases. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can't say I've come across it before, but everything you said totally makes sense. It probably would be a more mindful and connected experience to your food. Being more mindful with food in general is a really helpful principle for a lot of people. We are so used to sitting down in front of the TV and scoffing our food and not even noticing that we're eating sometimes. So being more mindful in general can be a really positive experience. And if eating with your hands allows you to connect with your food more, and it allows you to slow down and, as I say, be more mindful in that experience, then yeah, I'm all for it. And then certainly maybe it will help with immunity, but then in the same vein, you're probably more likely to pick up some bugs and things if you are eating with your hands all the time. Perhaps that would improve your immune system. I can't say for sure.
Yeah, very interesting. I've noticed a lot of more of the Middle Eastern culture on social media. that are, fitness into the fitness health industry have been kind of discussing that a little bit. So I just found it curious. I thought I'd ask. You know what I mean?
I'm going to do some now.
Yeah. It's not like super out there, but I have noticed a few people starting to create content around that, and I just thought it was very interesting because it does, like you said, it does make sense. You know what I mean? But we're just not used to doing that. And one thing that I do agree with for sure, at least, is you'll know how hot the food is when you touch it, so you don't burn your mouth. So that I found interesting. But yeah, so going back to like water intake, what do you suggest people should be drinking, or what should they be drinking daily to be healthy?
Yeah, so recommendations are sort of a litre and a half plus, really, of fluid at least. So that does include tea and coffee, contrary to popular belief. Tea, coffee, squash, not fizzy drink. They will all count towards your fluid intake. A litre and a half is a minimum, but if you are active, if you are sweating at all, then you probably need more than that. Most people do well with around 2 to 3 litres. You can drink too much. I wouldn't be going higher than sort of 5 or 6 litres of water a day, because you can essentially poison yourself by doing that. So yeah, don't go crazy. But for most people, if they were to drink a glass of water with every meal and then add a couple more throughout the day, or have 2 or 3 teas or coffees or whatever they have, then they'll hit that recommendation pretty easily.
Awesome. How would somebody know if they're not drinking enough water?
You probably won't feel that great. So if you're dehydrated, you might get headachy, sort of dry mouth, a bit sort of fatigued potentially as well. Sometimes you're already quite dehydrated by the time you experience the symptoms. You can also tell from the color of your urine, of course. If it's champagne colored, then you're on the right path. If it's straw colored or leaning towards orange, then you're probably dehydrated, and that's the most reliable indicator, really.
Makes sense. Yeah. What should somebody do if they find themselves in that circumstance where they're severely dehydrated? How quick does it take for them to rehydrate, and what should they do basically? Should they just start pounding water? Should they do it slowly? What's the best way for them?
It depends on the circumstances and how dehydrated they are. I wouldn't recommend like chugging 2 litres of water straight away. Your stomach might not like that. Little and often is normally the best approach. I can't say specifically. It's not something I have much experience with. But I would imagine and recommend that just try and increase your water intake throughout the day. Set yourself reminders to have a glass of water. First thing when you get up in the morning, have a glass of water. Sit down for breakfast, have a glass of water. Halfway between breakfast and lunch, have a glass of water. Try and add more in throughout the day that way.
Very cool. Yeah. A friend of mine, actually, he mentioned to me, I was speaking with him, he's starting to get into, his fitness again and stuff like that. And he told me that he bought a water bottle from Amazon, and it basically connects to an app, and it tells him, how much he's drank already throughout the day. And I thought that was very cool. So I figured I'd bring that up. Yeah. I was like, really? Exactly. Most people will have to go and they weigh their water to see exactly how much they're drinking and add it to their trackers and stuff like that. And I thought this was just a super easy way to do that. I was like, wow. I still haven't gotten one, but I was definitely interested in getting one soon, because that's super easy to know for sure. Like, okay, I hit my water goal for the day. So that's pretty cool.
It's sort of crazy tech innovations now. Like, the health industry is just being infiltrated with these amazing ideas that are technology based, and that is a good example of it. Really cool.
Yeah, I definitely thought that was cool. So let's say somebody is looking for some nutritional advice, or they're looking for a coach or a trainer. How do they get a hold of you, and what's your process like so that they can get started with you?
Yeah, sure. One thing I'll just mention, if they are looking for a coach, or if they're looking for a nutritionist specifically, please make sure that they are registered and accredited. Nutritionist isn't, at least in the UK, it's not a protected title. So anyone can call themselves a nutritionist, which is really difficult for us, because literally anyone off the street can do a 2-hour nutrition course and then call themselves a nutritionist. So look for registration. In the UK, the governing body is the Association for Nutrition. So if somebody is a registered associate nutritionist, then they are accredited, and it means they have done an actual degree or caught like a accredited course in it. Same with personal trainers. Make sure they actually have the qualifications, because there are so many people online now that think that just because they have a particular body type means that they know everything about how to achieve that body type, and they don't necessarily have those credentials. So just please make sure, do your research and make sure you're listening to accredited people. For me specifically, you can reach me on Instagram, or I've just started TikTok. I don't know what I'm doing with it, but my handle is Lean Green Leah, and my website is leahfoodandfitness.com. You can email me, my details are on my pages, and essentially normally we just have a discovery chat first, so just a 15-minute phone call just to introduce myself, find out a little bit about you and what you're looking for, and tell you about the services that I offer. And then if you would like to go ahead, then we almost all of my services begin with an initial consultation, which will be an hour-long discussion of you, your goals, your starting point, what you're looking for, and then obviously depending on what sort of path or program you're going with, we'll go from there.
Awesome. And what are your programs based? Like, do you have a monthly, is it like 3 months or 6 months, year? How do your programs work for your clients?
Yeah, so I have kind of a tiered system. So I have a free level where you can join like my community chats. It's just a WhatsApp group where we just share, recipes, tips, advice, and people support each other. That's totally free. You can join that whenever you like. And then I offer sort of 12-week fitness programs where I will program a 12-week fitness program for you, but I kind of leave you, it's like a DIY option, so I leave you to get on with it, and then so we'll have an initial consultation, then you go off for 12 weeks, do what I told you to do essentially, and then you can come back at the end and renew it for another 12 weeks if you'd like to, and have another consultation to discuss how that went. And then sort of my top level of support is a monthly rolling package, whereby you have a consultation every month. You have weekly catch-ups online via, like, you complete a reflection form essentially, and I get feedback on that. I monitor your workouts. I'm available all the time essentially, and it's a lot more hands-on, so I'm always there to discuss sort of nutrition and fitness principles. And then I do also offer just like one-off nutrition consultations as well. If you just want to sit down and ask me some questions for an hour or chat about your nutrition, then we can book that in as well as a one-off.
And they can get all that, or they can book everything on your Instagram, website, etc.
Yeah, just send me a message essentially or there is a booking link to a discovery call. Actually, I don't think that works at the moment because I changed my website, but I'm setting that back up. Just send me a message, and I'd love to hear from anyone. I'm always happy to answer questions as well. You don't need to, book. If you just have a question about nutrition, just ask me. I will always be happy to answer and share my knowledge. I love getting into discussions, debates with people. I love fighting my corner in a sharing positive way. So yeah, I'm always happy to chat. Obviously, if you've got a really specific question about you, then we may need a bit more time, in which case I would encourage you to book a full sort of consultation.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. So would you say that you work with like a certain specific type of people for their goals, or are you more of a general, you work with everybody? Can you let us know about that?
Yeah, so I'm quite an all-rounder at the moment. I work with a variety of clients on a variety of aspects. I've recently, I love the fact that my clients challenge me to expand my knowledge as well. So I've had a client recently that came back from an injury and was looking for injury prevention, mobility work, and I went crazy doing so much research about all of this stuff, trying to support him in that aspect, and I love that. Most of my clients are women, but it's not all women. So I have some male clients as well, but most are women that come from a perhaps restrictive or diet cycle background, where they've been on and off diets, falling off the wagon, and losing weight and regaining it for years, and they come to me to find a sustainable lifestyle approach, so something that is going to last them and to make positive changes for their health. That's kind of mostly where my work is based. I also absolutely love empowering women to lift weights in the gym, so that is one of my favorite things to do, is to show women how cool it is to pick heavy stuff up off the floor, which sounds really boring, but showing people that fitness and health can be about so much more than aesthetics. I can help with fat loss, but I don't specifically work with fat loss clients. If it's part of your goal in terms of your general health improvement, absolutely fine, but I don't do like transformations. I will never post before and after pictures, for example. That's not me. I'm much more about mindset, holistic health, and everything rather than aesthetics.
The important stuff that people need to change their habits on specifically. That's very cool. So is there anything else that you want to say before we end the podcast?
No, I don't think so. I think my main points in terms of improving nutrition is just more plant foods, more diversity, more fiber, think about nutrition by addition. And also another sort of just general tip that I would like to put out there is really take notice of your own self-talk, because we can be really cruel to ourselves. And actually, when you can learn to be a bit more compassionate towards yourself and forgive yourself and learn to grow and move on from mistakes and what you perceive to be failings, that is all part of the process. And if we can be kinder to ourselves, it's going to be easier to make positive changes because we know that we deserve them. Essentially, it's hard to make positive changes for your health when you hate yourself. So do just be aware of your self-talk and let's try and be nicer to ourselves and to everybody, to be honest.
I love that message. Yeah, that's definitely true. And I find that when you're kinder to yourself, it allows you to be kinder to others. You start feeling more of that empathy, because you're at the end of the day, you're the most important to yourself, no matter what. Even if you have kids, etc. At the end of the day, if you can't take care of yourself properly, then you're not really giving your full, your whole to the other person or to other people. So I definitely agree that, helping yourself first before others is good. You know what I mean? For everybody in general. I notice that a lot of people that they put others before themselves, they have a bunch of issues. They're either depressed, right? Or they're just kind of like, they take it out on other people in a sense, because they're doing so much for others. They're not really taking care of what they need to take care of, which is themselves first. So I definitely agree with that. But yeah, it was great to have you on, and I'm very excited that we were able to do this. And I'll definitely link everything in the description so then people know how to get a hold of you. And I just want to thank you for hopping on and helping everybody with their nutrition and the understanding of how they should go about their nutrition and eating and stuff like that. So thank you very much, and happy to have you on.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's been a pleasure.
And that brings us to the end of the Success Solutions podcast. Thank you for joining us today as we delve deep into the world of nutrition with our guest, Leah Blake, and uncovered valuable insights to help you make informed choices on your nutrition and well-being. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay connected with us, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, don't forget to like this video and share it with others who might benefit from this valuable information. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, please leave them down in the comment section below. We love hearing from our community, and your feedback helps us shape the content we bring to you. See you in the next episode.